ubujiji ni inzitizi ku iterambere. Buri mwana w'umunyarwanda agomba kwiga. Ubumenyi inzira y'iterambere. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Buri wese abigize ibye twatsinda burundu akarengane na ruswa. U Rwanda ruzira ruswa n'akarengane mu cyerekezo 2050. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Munyarwanda, isuku ni isoko y'ubuzima. Zirikana ko isuku kubagize umuryango wawe ari inshingano zawe. Isuku kuri buri munyarwanda, igihugu kizira indwara. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
Dear listener, thank you for tuning in. This is Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM, broadcasting from Kigali. Hear the news in English, brought to you by Alvin Umngadi. The headlines. A female patient who died at Baho International Hospital in September 2021 during a surgical operation has vowed to appeal against a court decision to acquit the medics who carried out the procedure. Tito Rutaremara, a veteran politician who's also a chairperson of the Rwanda Elders Advisory Forum, said members of Rwanda Patriotic Front, RPF Inkotanyi, contributed in different ways towards the liberation struggle that stopped the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Equatorial Guinea's Vice President Theodore Nguema Obiang Mangu, who is also the son of the president, has accused the country's former colonial power Spain of interference. Spanish authorities announced that they dismantled an organization that had sent more than 5,000 tons of hazardous electronic waste from the Canary Islands to several African countries. We'll be back shortly with news in detail. Thank you. Welcome back. Two people suspected of cutting electricity cables connecting households in Burera district were arrested on Sunday, January 1st. Valence Hagenimana, aged 23, and Janvier Nyotwagira, aged 22, were arrested in Kirwa village, Bugambad cell in Kinyababa sector with 35 meters of electricity cables, which they allegedly cut from different households. The wires were connecting homes to the national grid. Superintendent of Police SP Alex Ndaisenga, the Northern Region Political and Civic Education Officer, said the act caused power outage in some parts of Kirwa village. Residents has complained about unknown people who cut and steal electricity wires, especially at night, putting their homes in darkness. Hajanimana and Nyotwagira were the prime suspects. SP Ndaisenga said police officers went and searched their homes in Kirwa village, where sacks containing electricity wires allegedly cut from homes were found and the two suspects arrested. The suspects, who were handed over to RIB at Butaro station for further investigation, were selling the wires as scraps. SP Ndaisenga warned against vandalizing public infrastructure and urged the public to report those who destroy them. Article 182 of the law determining offences and penalties states that any person who maliciously demolishes or damages in any way, in whole or in part of construction, building, bridge, dams, water pipes and their routes, railway rails, or any other means of communication or electric power infrastructure, or any other construction which do not belong to him or her, commits an offence. Upon conviction, he or she is liable to imprisonment for a term of not less than 3 years and not more than 5 years, with a fine of not less than 3 million rand and francs and not more than 5 million rand and francs. Different Rwandans, including farmers who were members of Rwanda Patriotic Front, RPF Inkotanyi, contributed in different ways towards the liberation struggle that stopped the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. This was said by Tito Rutaremara, a veteran politician and historical member of the RPF Inkotanyi, who is currently the chairperson of Rwanda Elders Advisory Forum. In a tweet thread shared on his timeline, Rutaremara said the members' voluntary contributions were in terms of money, equipment, and voluntary works, among others. He said that while employees in different institutions contributed part of their salaries towards RPF activities, non-salaried workers like farmers and cattle keepers contributed part of their harvest and livestock. Different Rwandans, including farmers who are members of Rwanda Patriotic Front, RPF Inkotanyi, contributed in different ways towards the liberation struggle that stopped the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. This was said by Tito Rutaremara, a politician and historical member of the RPF Inkotanyi, who is currently the chairperson of Rwanda Elders Advisory Forum. He said that while employees in different institutions contributed part of their salaries towards RPF activities, he also noted that other contributors were collected through fundraising campaigns. Fundraising were carried out in different ways in Europe. RPF members would organize fundraisings through parties, gala dinners, and others. He added that even farmers with small livestock made sure they contributed during the liberation struggle, and in Africa, he explained fundraising campaigns will be done through traditional dance concerts and other parties that bring together many people. Paul Jabo, the widower of Chantal Ngwinondebe, a female patient who died at Baho International Hospital in September 2021 during a surgical operation, has vowed to appeal against a court decision to acquit the medics who carried out the procedure. Since last year, Dr. Gaspard Nahunyiriye, a gynecologist, and Dr. Alfred Mujenanshuro, an anesthesiologist, the duo that carried out the procedure, has been in courts of law on charges of negligence and less cautiousness that alleged to the death of Ngwinondebe. The 54-year-old passed on as the two medics attempted to remove an intrauterine device, IUD, from her body. During an earlier hearing at Kicukiro Primary Court, the prosecutors told the judge that when the patient checked into the hospital, Dr. Nahonyiriye tried to remove the IUD, but it was so painful that he decided to use hysterectomy, a surgical intervention that is done by the use of endoscopy. She was advised to return to the hospital 2 days later for the procedure. On coming back, Dr. Mugemanshuro anesthetized her and Dr. Naonyiriye carried out the surgery, but unfortunately she did not make it out of the operation. Citing a provisional autopsy report, the prosecutor said Ngwinondebe died of laryngospasm, a spasm of the vocal cords that temporarily makes it difficult to breathe. But they said her death would have been avoided if the medics had done what they were required to do. They claimed that the surgery went wrong because the theater lacked crucial supplies, including oxygen and adrenaline, a medicine used to treat cardiac arrest. The two medics defended themselves, saying they professionally did all they had to do. They insisted that both oxygen and adrenaline were available during the operation. In a counter-argument, the prosecutors maintained that adrenaline was not available, citing a testimony of a witness who said that Dr. Thomas, an employee at the hospital at that time, rushed to Gisimenti to buy the drug after the patient had died. On December 9th, the court issued the verdict acquitting the two medics, a decision that was mainly based on the explanations presented to the judges by Dr. Uwineza and another expert medic tasked to enlighten the judges on the Ministry of Health's report and how surgical operations are carried out. Speaking to the New Times, Paul Jabo, the widower of the deceased Ngwinondebe, said, "I will appeal. I don't think there was fairness. I have already contacted the prosecutors and asked them to file an appeal." The Ministry of Local Government, Minalok, has warned parents and guardians against children dropping out of school ahead of the second term, which starts on Monday, January 9th. The ministry wants to inform the public that local authorities are gathering information to know if all children attend schools. In addition, the ministry also refuted reports claiming that the data which is being collected is intended to help those who have not yet reported to school to be admitted to boarding schools. Minalok disclosed that the local authorities has been carrying out such surveys for all students, including those who passed the national examination but failed to enroll in boarding schools, to help them to get at least 12 years of basic education. They encouraged parents and neighbors to follow up and provide information in case they are aware of a child who has dropped out of school. The Education Ministry recently issued a back-to-school travel schedule ahead of the second term that starts on Monday next week. We'll be back shortly with economic news.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The trading session recorded a total turnover of 2,989,744,000 rand and francs worth of bonds traded in 5 deals on the fixed income market, while the equities market remained quiet. Equities counters closed as follow: Bralirwa at 170 rand and francs, Bank of Kigali at 271 rand and francs, I&M Rwanda at 43 rand and francs, Simerwa at 120 rand and francs, MTN Rwanda at 175 rand and francs, Equity at 440 rand and francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 328 rand and francs, National Media Group at 1,200 rand and francs, Uchumi Supermarket Limited at 104 rand and francs, and R&H Buffalo at 526 rand and francs. The exchange rate today: the United States dollar was buying 1,061 and was selling 1,082 rand and francs. The British pound was buying 1,271 and was selling 1,297 rand and francs. The euro was buying 1,121 and was selling 1,143 rand and francs. The Kenyan shilling was buying 8.5 rand and francs and was selling 8.7 rand and francs. The Tanzanian shilling was buying 0.45 rand and francs and was selling 0.46 rand and francs. The Ugandan shilling was buying 0.28 rand and francs and was selling 0.29 rand and francs. The Burundian francs was buying 0.51 and was selling 0.52 rand and francs. We'll be back shortly with international news.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
Equatorial Guinea's Vice President Theodore Nguema Obiang Mangu, who is also the son of the president, has accused the country's former colonial power, Spain, of interference. The allegation comes after Spain's judiciary opened an investigation into the kidnapping and torture of 2 Spanish nationals, Feliciano Efa Mangu and Julio Obama Mifumam, in the West Africa state's capital, Malabo. Both were opponents of the President Theodore Obiang Nguema Basongo's regime. He's now 80 years old and has been in power since 1979, which makes him the longest serving president in Africa. The investigation, revealed on Tuesday by the Spanish daily El Pe in Madrid, targets 3 relatives of President Obiang. One of the 3 is another of his sons, Carmelo Ovano Obiang, who is the head of the Foreign Intelligence Service, Nicola Obama Nchama, the Minister of National Security, and Isaac Nguema Endo, the Director General of Presidential Security. The 3 men are suspected by the Madrid court of having had 4 opponents forcibly returned to Spain from South Sudan in 2019. The 4 include 2 Spanish citizens of Equatorial Guinea's origin. All of them were tortured. These terrorists were arrested by the Sudanese authorities and extradited by the Equatorial Guinea under an international arrest warrant issued by Malabo, Vice President Obiang said in a tweet on Tuesday evening. Spanish authorities announced that they dismantled an organization that had sent more than 5,000 tons of hazardous electronic waste from the Canary Islands to several African countries like Senegal, Nigeria, Mauritania, and Ghana. According to the Spanish Customs and Civil Guard, the criminal organization that during the last 2 years had managed to send from the island of Gran Canaria to Africa more than 5,000 tons of hazardous waste of electronic devices would have earned more than €1.5 million of profit. The waste was sent by boat mainly to Mauritania, Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal, and 43 people were arrested for alleged environmental offenses, forgery, and membership of a criminal organization, removing waste from the legal channel with the help of a supposed management company that falsified documents on the origin and management. This waste was then presented as second-hand items to be sent to these African countries. The scraps, which contain mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, and phosphorus, must be handed over to authorized companies for decontamination. Togo's President Faure Ngosibe, who is mediating in the case of 46 Ivorian soldiers suspected of being mercenaries and detained in Mali since July, arrived in Bamako. A diplomatic official revealed it on Wednesday. Abdoulaye Cissé, diplomatic advisor to Mali's foreign ministry, said President Faure has just arrived in Bamako for a visit for some hours. He was welcomed by President Assimi Goïta. The two heads of state, after a first tete-a-tete at the airport, took the road to Kuluba, where the Malian presidency is based, for 2 working sessions, including one behind closed doors between the two presidents. The 46 Ivorian soldiers suspected of being mercenaries detained in Mali since July were sentenced on 30th December to 20 years in prison before the expiry of the ultimatum sent by the West African heads of state to the Malian junta to release them. They were found guilty of attacking and plotting against the government, undermining the external security of the state, possession, carrying and transporting weapons and munitions of war with the aim of disturbing public order through intimidation of terror, at the end of a 2-day trial in Bamako. In his New Year's speech, Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara promised that the imprisoned soldiers will soon return to Ivorian soil. Since 10th July, Côte d'Ivoire has demanded the release of its soldiers, categorically denying that they were mercenaries, claiming that they were on a mission to the UN as part of logistical support operation for the United Nations mission in Mali. The agreement reached between Mali and Ivory Coast leaves open the possibility of a presidential pardon for the head of the Malian military junta, Assimi Goïta, who did not mention the Ivorian soldiers in his end of the year speech on Saturday. And that brings us to the end of today's program. Let us look at the headlines once more. Female patient who died at Baho International Hospital in September 2021 during a surgical operation has vowed to appeal against a court decision to acquit the medics who carried out the procedure. Tito Rutaremara, a veteran politician who is also the chairperson of Rwanda Elders Advisory Forum, said members of Rwanda Patriotic Front, RPF Inkotanyi, contributed in different ways towards the liberation struggle that stopped the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Equatorial Guinea's Vice President Odongwema Obiang Mangu, who is also the son of the president, has accused the country's former colonial power, Spain, of interference. Spanish authorities announced that they dismantled an organization that has sent more than 5,000 tons of hazardous electronic waste from the Canary Islands to several African countries. This was Alvin Umngali. Thank you for tuning in, and with the help of our technician, and on behalf of Radio Imanzi, thank you for staying with us. We wish you a wonderful night.